So, good morning, everybody who is watching our IP business talk today. So now it's 9 o'clock here in Europe because our interview partner, our ambassador Peter Zhang, is located in Beijing, and so to make it comfortable for everybody, we decided to make it today in the morning for the European audience and in the afternoon for our Asian audience. You are, like always when we are doing our IP business talks, you are heavily invited. Please write us your questions in the stream, in the chat, so we can discuss that in addition with our interview partner and guest. So, Peter, thank you very much that you came to us here and that you cooperate with us in China as ambassador of the IP Business Academy. So, Peter, explain us a little bit about your background, your law firm, where you're coming from.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm Peter Zhang. I'm a patent attorney. My background is I majored in electronics and photo electronics in university, and I joined the Chinese patent office to become a patent examiner in the year of 2001. So 11 years later, I left the patent office and joined a private law firm, Linda Liu Partners, to become a patent attorney. Now I'm a partner of Linda Liu Partners, managing the department of our strategy development department in our firm. I do counsel for all kinds of our clients, from startups to big international companies, and I cover all kinds of different types of IP issues, like patent and trademark transfer, assignment, and patent drafting, prosecution, post-granting proceedings, and some litigation, some about the litigation. Uh, some words about Linda Liu and Partners, our firm. Linda Liu and Partners, founded by Dr. Linda Liu in the year of 2003. So this year is our 18th anniversary. Now we have more than 350 employees. We have a head office based in Beijing, and we have 3 branches in Shanghai, Dalian City, and Suzhou. Yeah, we
Okay.
handle all kinds of IP issues for our clients. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let's come to our topic, which we would like to talk about today, and this is the recent developments in IP and in the business world in China. Can you explain us a little bit what's going on right now?
Yeah, I think the most noteworthy development in terms of the legal affairs is that we will have a new patent law uh, on June 1st of this year. Yeah, if we look into this new patent law, we can know that the protection period for design patent will extend it from 10 years to 15 years, which means China wants to be a member state of a Hague Agreement. You know, Hague Agreement is for the international application for design patent. Yeah, so after the amendment of our Chinese patent law, China will soon become a member state of a Hague Agreement. So in the near future, the applicants around the world will be easier to find a design application in China.
Wonderful.
And
That's good. That's good news.
yeah, that will be more cost effective. You can file a international design application through European country and directly to the Chinese patent office.
Great, great. And
Okay.
other trends or tendencies which are interesting, which we should mention here.
Yeah, I think in terms of the aspects of enforcement, there are some new changes, which is very favorable to the patentee. Firstly, sometimes it's very difficult to produce evidence of the infringement.
Of
But
course.
according to the
I
new
mean, that's
law,
not a Chinese problem. that,
yeah.
that happens around the globe. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So according to the new law, if the patentee tried his best to produce the evidence, but um, the main evidence was controlled by the accused infringer. So the court will transfer the burden of proof to the accused infringer to ask the infringer to submit the evidence. If the infringer refuses to submit the evidence or submit some fake evidence, the infringer will take the full responsibility for this infringement litigation. So that is,
Wow.
yeah, according to the new law. And
Okay. I mean,
another,
that's a big step, isn't it?
yeah, it's a very pro patentee. So maybe there will be more and more patent infringement litigation, yeah, in China.
Yeah, I would expect so. Yes.
Mm. And secondly, punitive damage is introduced into the new law, which means if the infringer was considered to infringe the patent right many times or intentionally, the court will, you know, uh, conclude punitive damage, which is 1 time to 5 times of the damage.
Whoa. Five
Yeah,
time of the damage. Wow. That's.
yeah,
I
five
mean that that is reasonable.
yeah. That's a punishment to the continuous infringement to the
Absolutely.
yeah. That's
So Peter,
definitely yeah,
you should write in the blog for the IP Business Academy an overview of that changes, because I mean that's really that's enormous in terms of so this is a pro patent step, a pro
yeah,
patentee step. It fosters the patent, uh, the patent law. It fosters the the innovator, and at least the inventor,
yes,
with their position. I mean that's really I didn't know that in that to that yeah size. And that would be wonderful if you could give us an overview on the blog about the changes. So let's come to SMEs. I mean, the multinationals have quite often, they have big IP departments like your Huawei or Xiaomi or that kind of companies, of course.
yeah,
But we have also startups, we have SMEs, and they are uh, also quite international, active, and quite often that's their only chance to grow when they go international. So and when companies, let's say from the US or from Europe, uh, when they want to enter the Chinese market, are there some, let's say, recommendations and some specific consequences which they should take into account, which they should consider when they come to China?
Yeah, generally speaking, I suggest to have the IP portfolio in China as soon as possible, as early as possible. China is a huge market. China is not only a huge market, but also a very good manufacturing base for many international companies. Yeah, so if you ignore the IP portfolio building in China, so when you come into Chinese market, you will face a lot of problems. So I helped a lot of clients, SMEs or startups, for those cases. For example, uh, a European market, a supermarket, which is well known in European countries, a supermarket. The supermarket treated China as a manufacturing base, but not a major market. So they didn't register a trademark in China. But a lot of tourists bought a lot of things from the supermarket in Europe and brought them back to China to sell, which made this supermarket more and more famous in China. And someone else registered this name of the supermarket as a trademark in China. So later on, when this supermarket wanted to open an online store in on Alibaba, and the supermarket suddenly noticed that his name has already been registered by some others. So we help these clients to get his name back, but it takes almost 1 year and by very complex proceedings. So,
So
according
when
to
when
yeah,
I understand you right, what you're saying is that at least some of the problems which US or European companies face with China is a certain underestimation of the IP issue with China, and it's homemade, so to speak, that they did not behave in a professional way with their IP, and so they create their own problems to a certain extent. And it is not these China bashing, which quite often, and which is simply trivial. Yeah, so the Chinese and IP. I mean, to a certain extent, it's homemade because of an unprofessional behavior.
mhm.
Is that
Yeah,
is that your message?
right. I understand. For startups, especially for startups, they have many things to handle. For example, fundraising or marketing. But IP protection is also very important. Yeah, especially in China. Now, in recent years, the IP dispute was very, active among the Chinese companies or Chinese with foreign companies. Yeah, according to the statistics of
Excuse me, excuse me, Peter. What the number which I heard is that around 90% of all IP disputes in China are between Chinese companies, and no foreigners uh, um, are involved there. So that means China becomes really an IP driven country, and IP disputes are very fierce and heavily, and especially between Chinese, and no foreigners are involved there. Is that true?
yeah, 90% among Chinese but this IP dispute in China is very intense. Um, there are huge amount. So even we say 10% are between Chinese and foreign companies, That will account more than I think more than about 2,000 cases every year. Yeah.
Wow,
So
that's a big number. So what you create is also a very, let's say, a deep practice on IP law and IP and legal IP decisions.
uh, yeah. You mean
Yeah.
I mean the court received a new case every year. It is increasing. According to the data issued from the Supreme Court, the new established case increased 60% year on year.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and but there's a new good news. The average infringement damage concluded by the court increased 80%.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So no, what I want to say is that because of simply that amount, that number of cases, so you create a huge practice on that legal issues, on that decisions which are made, and I mean that's so you so to speak teach and train the judges, you train with that, you have the practice also with the lawyers, and
Mm.
that creates a certain level of knowledge um, based on that court cases simply.
Yes, every year we got a lot of judgment from the courts covering all kinds of IP disputes, like trademark, patent, trade secret, and so on. Yeah, so we have more and more practitioners now in IP fields in China.
Yeah, that comes, yeah, that's that. In addition, yes, you have that practitioners, and you create that decisions, and that creates a certain practice what's going on, and also a certain and higher level um, of understanding for everybody what IP is, what it means, and that it is a issue which you have to, yeah, take into account, to consider that, and it becomes more and more a kind of, let's say, normal business practice to use IP. I have the feeling that many Chinese companies now really use that tool as really as an weapon, as an asset. I mean, Ping An, for example. I mean, that's not an SME, but the biggest Chinese insurance company is one of the top 10 PCT filers, applicants at the WIPO. And I mean that's a big signal. Yeah, it's also for digital patents and for software-based patents.
Yes.
But I mean, it shows that Chinese companies really understand that asset. And I mean also what Huawei did on 5G, yeah, that it is one of the major contributors and one of the biggest SEP holders. I mean, 5G is to a certain extent a Chinese technology.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, when I came into IT field 20 years ago, at that time, very a few Chinese people could understand what IP was. But 20 years later now, many companies they really use IP as a very important tools to for the healthy development of their business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would say also we really have so we as Europeans, we really have to observe what's going on there in China, because we see really that movement into the, on the one hand, into the direction of intangibility, so intangible assets in terms of know-how, of knowledge. and not just producing physical products. So Chinese companies also develop now global brands, and they manage that brands like Huawei. And in addition, this practice how to use IP. Um, uh, do you see, by the way, do you see also a kind of what comes from the US market, these non-practicing entity activities? So when you say that you get punitive damages, then this can also be seen as a signal for non-practicing entities to start this trollish behavior. Um, do you think that this kind of reaction will happen in China based to the new law?
Yeah, it's happening. The damage, the average damage from the judgment of the court is increasing. Yeah, so I think in the near future we will see more and more case with a huge damage, and those case law will stimulate the companies to do more research and to file more patent applications. Even for the startup, patents are very important. Um, Last year, we helped a Chinese startup. They are very good at artificial intelligence. I mean, the algorithm. So a US company, which is in the traditional field of home appliance, I mean the electrical appliance, they want their product be smart. They want to they want to produce the floor mopping robots. So they purchased this Chinese startup in order to get this technology of artificial intelligence to make their devices smart. Now, this acquisition goes very well, and we help this Chinese startup to transfer their patent rights to the US companies. And this story happens quite often now in China. Yeah.
Okay, okay, but that's fascinating. But my question was more about the patent trolls, how we call it, right? So companies which just buy patents or aggregate patents for the sake of enforcing that patents.
Mhm.
Sometimes just it is just a business. Sometimes it has the tendency for blackmailing. But what I mean is, so when you have that huge damages, that will have a certain, this is a signal that companies invest in buying patents and just enforce patents and doing nothing else. And
Mhm.
so that kind of non-practicing entity, and to a certain extent we don't see that big business of trolls here in Europe, because we don't have that kind of damages. That, and but when you say you will get that high damages, and that it is a kind of, yeah, that makes it attractive
Mhm.
to create such non-practicing entities. And do you think that this will happen in China?
Right. You're right. I observed that maybe MPEs consider China as a very potential jurisdiction for high damage, or licensing fee. So they have many activities now in China, but you know, they collect a lot of patents. So I can see there are more invalidation cases towards these patents of the MPEs. Yeah, in order to kill these patents. So this has already happened now in China.
Wow. Okay. And I mean that is a a huge market for that kind of companies. So that this said Chinese saw you may live in interesting times. It becomes true, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So I
yeah.
guess
I found
yeah.
some NPEs. You may know, there are big NPEs like some US NPEs, but there's also some medium-sized NPEs in China. Even some NPEs even from Germany.
Are active in China now.
Right, yeah. And
Okay, fascinating.
some universities, they got some patent, and they transfer their patents to some NPEs. That's what I observed.
Okay, so Peter, we should set up a next meeting when we talk about NPEs in China. I mean, that's a fascinating issue, and we will have to observe there a lot, according also to the change of the law. So let's come back to SMEs. Um, so what I'm trying to teach to my students is, and also when I'm talking with decision makers in company, is that something like an IP expert, yeah, does not exist, and also a topic like IP is not really existing. So what exists is a patent attorney, a trademark expert, a copyright expert, and we have a lot of literatures on that. But typically, a trademark guy don't goes on conferences on patents, and a patent guy don't go to INTA and talk about trademark and brand issues. And so with copyright guys, so copyright is a very specific issue again, and design rights are that. So but from a business perspective, let's say from a perspective of an SME, what they see is that there are a lot of experts and a lot of very difficult and complex legal aspects, and so typically we recommend to companies, especially to SMEs, please take care about your IP. But then it turns out that this is a terrific complex issue because of these all these different laws and these different experts. And so what would you say, can yeah, is there a general recommendation how to handle that?
Yeah, you're right. Because IP is a relatively wide concept. As an expert, we have to focus on a very specific field. Uh, like me, I specific on patent field. My colleague, they are handling trademark issues, and we have attorney at law. They help our clients to handle their copyright. So if SMEs want to have their whole IP protection, it's better for them to come to an IP law firm. Uh, yeah, like law firm, we have all kinds of people to handle different aspects of IP. Yeah. Generally speaking, startups should pay attention firstly to trademark, because it's very visible, right? Yeah, and then they can consider to register their domain name as trademark, in order to protect their domain name. And then they can consider to record their copyright, because the copyright is also very visible. And then design patent is very visible, and it's very easy to enforce, because the judge can easily tell Is it the same or different according to the pictures? And later, maybe the SMEs or startups can think about we say hardcore IP. Hardcore IP means invention patent or utility model patent, right? So we can do it step by step.
Okay, so doesn't that depends a little bit also on the business model of the company? I mean, when the company is a tech startup, yeah, so or an SME, I mean, we have SME, a broad range of SMEs, like,
Yes.
and but when we say the business model of a company is really technology driven, so then they should also from a beginning they should really take care about their patents, and also from a first to file principle. It's also extremely important. Don't forget that markets, especially not the Chinese market. I mean, also from an investor or owner perspective, that makes a lot of sense to take care about that. On the other hand, when we say the business model is more trade or anything else, then like the supermarket you mentioned,
Yeah.
so then of course the other IP rights are more important. So
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent, it depends on the business model of the company, right?
You're right. Yeah. Let me give you another example. A startup from Australia, um, they sell nourishment in China. You know, the tablets with a lot of vitamins or some honey from some specific flowers. Yeah, they import those nourishment in China and got very, popular because China is very. We have 1.4 billion people. Yeah, so because their business model is like a trade, so they are focusing on protecting their trademark and some designs of the bottles or something like that. The decoration of the packages, something like that.
Okay.
Mhm.
So a kind of trade, design of the packages. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, but
Okay.
yeah, another example is a Sweden guy. He designed a very unique sofa, and this kind of sofa got very popular in budget hotels. But he forgot to protect his IP in advance, and later he found a lot of copycat imitation of his sofa in China. But he could do nothing to protect himself because he have no IP right in China. So that's
Yeah.
a negative example.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you
Mm.
have in China that logic of a trade dress like the US?
We don't have this concept of trade dress, but we can protect this similar concept as trade dress by using anti unfair competition law.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. We help our clients to protect their specific declaration of the package. Uh, and yeah, successfully because this package is very popular and well known on the market. Yeah, we have
So
the equivalent
mhm.
concept, but we don't call it a trade dress in China.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you work a lot for European, also German clients. Um, are there some, let's say, typical misunderstandings of China, of the IP world in China, for, let's say, foreigners, US guys, or American guys, or European guys? Because my impression is that uh, Europeans, at least, are annoyed about the IP behavior in China. But as you said, quite often it's simply a homemade problem because of a misunderstanding or an underestimation of the dynamics of that market, and that it is that it makes sense from a Chinese perspective to say, okay, it's not protected, so why shouldn't I use a brand name or a certain technology in China which is successful in Europe? So why not? Okay, and then the European companies are totally shocked what happens in China, but simply they oversaw that not. So it's simply they, to a certain extent, a misunderstanding of the amount of homework which is necessary because of the dynamics in China.
Yeah, in the past, maybe people think it's useless to have IP in China because there was no protection. But things changed in the past few years. Um, the IP dispute in China got very intense. Uh, China is very active in the field of e-commerce. I mean, the online business. Uh, right now, if you don't file a trademark application, you cannot even open a new store online in Alibaba. And the right owner complained uh, to Alibaba in order to delete the link of the competitors or the infringers. These complaints, I think every day there are more than 10,000 complaints about IP infringement. Yeah.
Yeah. So how is it in China when? So we have a discussion here about the liability of the trading platform for selling. So when transactions happens on the platform with infringing products, and we have a discussion who should be liable for that, so that the platform operator should have a liability for the fact that infringed products or infringing products are traded on his platform. So how is the legal situation in China about that?
Mm. Now, if the platform receive this complaint and the platform notice the other side, um, uh, so by doing this, it shows that the platform uh, uh, does his responsibility. Uh, Let me take an example for the trademark. If I'm a trademark owner, I found some infringement of my trademark. I complain this to the platform, and the platform will immediately delete the link and inform the accused infringer by saying someone, the trademark owner, uh, accused that you infringed this trademark. Please respond. And this online seller should have twice uh, opportunity to respond. What is going on? Is it infringed or not? And if the response is not persuasive, the link will not restored. Yeah, but
Okay.
for patent,
Okay.
for patent, the link will not be deleted immediately, but uh, it the platform will give the seller like uh, 1 week to response, and if the response is not reasonable, the link will be deleted.
Okay, okay. And I mean, what typically said then from the incumbent companies or from European companies is that, but after a day, the infringer has the next shop established online and is again online, okay, but it's the next shop. But what I learned is that, for example, Alibaba has a ranking, and when you are a not established shop, when you start a new business, so your ranking is extremely low. So to a certain extent, what you're doing when you're fighting against these counterfeiters or infringers, you suppress their availability, the factual availability in the market, right? Is that true?
Yeah, and in terms of IP, every online store they have 12 scores, and if someone comply, this store sells some fake goods, uh, they will cut down 4 scores, and like if this store is complained for 3 times, the whole store will be shut down. Yeah, not only the
Okay,
links, but the whole store will be shut down.
okay, okay. So, I mean, what I learned is it is a fight, and at the end, you have to fight. Otherwise, uh, yeah, your rights are gone, and factual. You when you don't fight against that, and when you don't invest in your brand, when you don't invest in the enforcement of your IP, and you are to a certain level successful, then you will lose your rights. And so it is a continuous investment is necessary in the Chinese market, but more and more the legal instruments come in place and are used, and you create more and more practice in using that instruments as a market, with a market impact, and the awareness of IP rises a lot. Sometimes I have the feeling that in China, IP is much more present to also to normal people, especially to business people. IP is much more present compared to European companies, where the decision makers just think, yeah, IP, I don't care. It's not a product. It's not really a business issue. So it's just a legal asset. So I have the impression in China it becomes more and more the awareness that it is a business issue, and it has to, and you need an investment in that.
Indeed, if you invest IP will give you award. Yeah,
Yeah, especially you as an attorney, right? No, I mean, good news. Good news for the IP community. IP becomes more and more important, and it is a business issue for decision makers, and it needs an investment. Otherwise, and we need experts, we need attorneys, we need lawyers, we need IP management to make that happen. And the rising of the intangibility, and as you said, digital marketplaces makes it even more important to take care about it.
sure.
Okay, so Peter, thank you very much for our discussion. I enjoyed that, and thank you for having the time for that talk. And that is definitely not the last interview, and we should talk about patent trolls in China. I think that's a fascinating topic. So thank you for your recommendation also to SMEs, and have a good day in Beijing.
Thank you. It's a privilege to talk with you, Alex. I hope we can do it again in the future.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.